Hey everyone, Cody from Mac Telecom Networks. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the Unifi Dream Machine base model. I've done quite a few videos on the UDM Pro, but I've never had the base UDM. I bought this off of Facebook Marketplace for about $200, so I thought it was a great deal and a good way to introduce it into my channel and do a review on it. If you guys are new here, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure to hit the bell icon. If you'd like to hire me for network consulting, visit www.mactelecomnetworks.com. You can find us on Instagram at Mac Telecom Networks. And if you'd like to support the channel, we have an Amazon storefront, and I'll put the link in the description below. So usually I would do an unboxing video, but there's not much to this. We have a 4-port managed switch that is built in, and then we have our WAN port. At the bottom, this is our power port, and we have a built-in access point into this UDM. On the bottom, we have a reset button, so we could just click and hold that to reset it back to factory default. On the top of the UDM, we have an LED, which will be blue when it's provisioned. The UDM has a high-performance dual-band 802.11 AC 4x4 Wave 2 AP built into it. As I said, we have the managed 4-port switch, and we have threat management, so IDS and IPS. The only controller that is in this UDM model is the Unifi network. If you want to use Unifi Protect or Unifi Access, you need to use the UDM Pro. And it has a 1.7 gigahertz quad-core processor. The price point for the Unifi Dream Machine is $389 Canadian MSRP, and the controller for this is built in. So this is the network setup that I'm going to be going with. My internet connection will be going into the WAN port in the UDM. From the UDM, we'll have a connection going to a USW Pro 24 PoE switch, and then from there, we'll have another Nano HD connecting to it. The first thing we'll do though, we're going to get the UDM online connected to our internet, and then we'll test the speed of the access point that's built into it. So I'm going to go ahead, power this up, and then plug it into my WAN connection. Now I have the WAN connection plugged in. I'm going to go ahead and plug my computer, and once I do that, it will direct us to the Unifi Dream Machine initial setup. As you can see, it redirects us to the web page. And then it says connecting to the internet. It's not going to find an internet connection for me as I have static IPs, but if you have DHCP, it should detect it. So what I need to do to set up my network connection, I need to go to Advanced Internet Options. And then here, this is where you specify your connection types. So you have DHCP, static IP address, or PPPoE. I'm going to select static IP address. Here I'm going to fill in the information, which is the IP address, gateway, subnet, and then the DNS. Some IPs require you to put their MAC address in, and this is where you would do it. You would enable MAC override and then put the MAC address in. For me, I just need to put my static information in and then press apply. Now it says internet connected. We'll press next. And then it says UI is committed to protecting your privacy and security, and you could read this, and I'm going to press setup UDM. Now it's asking us for a device name. I'm just going to leave it at UDM, and I'm going to agree to the terms and the end user license and press next. It's asking us what setup we're having. If it's for personal or business, I'm going to select personal. And now here is what's causing a lot of outrage on the internet. You have to have a Ubiquiti account to be able to set the UDM or the UDM Pro up. I already have a UI.com account, so I'm going to sign in. If you need to create an account, you could press create account. Now we have an update schedule, and I never have mine automatically update. I go to the frequency and I disable it. There has been a few firmware versions that have broken people's networks, so I always prefer to push my firmware out manually, and then I'll press next. Here it wants us to set up a Wi-Fi SSID, and we can't go forward without setting one up, so I'll just call it lab network. And then I'll give this a password of test1234 and press next. Auto optimize, I never turn that on either, so I'm going to deselect that and then press next. Now it's starting a speed test. All right, and here are my results, which are 673 by 56 up. I pay for 1 gig down and about 50 up, so it's kind of close. The download speed is a little slow, but I will just put this to 1000, and then I'll put this upload to 50, and then we'll press next. Now it's going to ask us to review all the account information, and I'll press finish. Now the UDM has finished setting up, let's go into the settings. So under the settings, we could see our device name, our WAN IP, the gateway IP, the MAC address, the owner of the device, the uptime, and the current firmware version that it's on. If we scroll down, we can see some of the hardware performance statistics, so the CPU load, the CPU temperature, and the memory. It will also show us some of the hardware specs and the internal storage. If we click on updates, this is where we're going to find if we need to update our UDM or if we need to update the Unifi network controller. Right now, we're on the latest stable version of firmware, which is 6.1.71. If we scroll down, we could turn on the auto updates, which we're not going to have that turned on. If we look under advanced, we could give our device a new name and we could turn on SSH. I only have SSH turned on when I need to get into the CLI. After I'm done using it, I turn it off. Every time you turn on the SSH session, it's going to ask you to create a new password. This is where you could turn on or off remote access. So if you have remote access turned on, you could access your UDM from unifi.ui.com. We could also enable analytics and improvements that will send data back to Ubiquiti. And then we have some device controls. So we could restart, power off, factory reset, or download a support file. Now let's get into the Unifi controller. So here we can see the Unifi network controller, and this is the only controller that's on the base UDM, and we can see that it's at version 6.1.71. And here, this is the new user interface. You can see at the top, not seeing everything you need, we could go back to the classic version. On the left-hand side, it's going to show you the UDM version number. We're on 1.93. It's going to show us our WAN IP and then the gateway. Below that, we're going to see our utilization for the last 24 hours. And then we're going to see the system uptime and then the most active clients. And then in the middle pane, this is going to be our speed statistics from our ISP. So we could see real-time usage of our downlinks and our uplinks. We could also run a speed test. Beside that, we have client device types. Right now, we only have this computer plugged into it, and you can see that it's a Windows machine. Below, we could see active clients, and there's only one active client, and there's only one access point. That's the access point that's built into the UDM, and no one is connected to the Wi-Fi. Now we've taken a look at the dashboard. Let's do a speed test of just the UDM access point that's built in. And here I'm using Wi-Fi Man, and I'm going to press Start Speed Test. And we can see from my iPhone, we're getting 615 megabits per second download and 76.5 upload, and that's reaching out to my internet service provider. And these speed tests are saved under Insights when we use Wi-Fi Man. So here it's going to show you your client device, the name, the Wi-Fi experience, the access point that it's currently connected to, the access point name, the SSID, the signal strength, the channel that it's on, the download speed, and the upload speed. And it will also show us our rate and the time that it was done on. Now I'll take my phone, I'll go to the middle floor and then the basement and see what type of speeds we're getting. And here's the test from my main floor. So this is one floor below the UDM, and we could see that the signal strength was minus 76 dB. We are on channel 80, which is on the 5 gigahertz range, and we were getting a download speed of 402 megabits per second and 77.2 megabits per second upload. Now let's do the same test down in my basement. And from my basement, we're getting a signal strength of minus 84 dB on the 5 gigahertz band with a download speed of 277 megabits per second and 72.7 megabits per second upload. My house is about 2,000 square feet, but that's pretty good speeds when you're 2 floors below the UDM. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to plug in the USW Pro 24 PoE and the other Nano HD access point, and then we'll look over the map and we'll look at how to adopt devices into our controller. Now I have my 24 port switch plugged in as well as my UAP Nano HD. They're ready to be adopted. Under our UDM, we could see a green light, but on our USW and our Nano, we have a blue light. So that means they need to be adopted into our controller. How we do that, we just click on the devices and then we press adopt. And I'll do the same thing for the Nano HD. This is going to take a few minutes for them to provision and get into our controller. Now the switch and access point have adopted into our controller. Let's go and look at the topology. So under the dashboard, we'll see topology. And here we could see a few things. We could see our wired and our wireless connections. We could see on the bottom left our UDM. which is connected to our USW Pro 24, and then a desktop, which is this computer I'm working on right now. At the top, we could see another desktop, which is still this one, but it's my wireless network card. Below that, we could see that my iPhone's connected, and then we have our Unifi Nano HD access point connected as well. We have a couple different filter options. If we go under display options, we could toggle on and off the clients. We could see the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz. We could show the SSID, the Wi-Fi experience, the channel, the Wi-Fi standards. Under wired, we could show the speed, so we could turn that on. It's going to show us what the speed of the wired connection is, and they're going 1 gigabit per second. And then we could show the ports. So on my USW Pro 24 port switch, on port 24, that's connecting to port 3 on the UDM. If we click on floor plan, it's going to direct us to design.ui.com, or you could go into the legacy classic controller and then drop a floor plan into here. I may do a video on the Unified Design Center in the future. Now let's take a look at our client tab. Under our client tab, it's going to show us the client name, the model of hardware, the IP address, the experience, the connection, 24-hour usage, the downlink, uplink, and then the uptime per client. If we click these 3 buttons on the side beside the client, we could block the client or we could reconnect the client. We also have some filtering options, so we could look at the status if they're active, offline, or if they're blocked. We could look at the connection type if it's a VPN, a wired, or a wireless connection. If it's a user, a guest, or on the 2.4 or the 5 gigahertz. Under statistics, this is going to give us a bunch of information of what's going through the UDM, and this is for our deep packet inspection. So we could see that we've done some file transfers, some web, some business network protocols. We have web file transfer, we have some iCloud and OneDrive. And it will also show us the streaming media. We could reset these stats by clicking reset and then reset. And now it will have no data, but it will refill eventually. If we take a look under Insights, this is going to give us a Wi-Fi scanner. And this will show up all our neighboring access points. So any access point or BSSID that is around us in our house or our neighbors. And then we've already taken a look at the Wi-Fi man. We could take a look at alerts, and if we have any alerts, it's going to show us in this list. So you could see a new unified device was discovered and is awaiting adoption, and it will show you a log of that. Now let's take a look at some of the settings within the UDM. The first thing we'll look at is our network. So I'll click on networks, and then here we can see our WAN network. This is our LAN network, and it's on 192.168.1.0/24, and it shows us our IP leases. So right now we have 5 leased and we have 248 available. The internet is our WAN. We have no backup, and this isn't a VPN connection. If we want to do content filtering on this, we could click on the 3 little dots and press edit. Here we could look under content filtering, and then we could specify if we want to have no content filtering, work, or family, which will have different options for both. To create a new network, we would press add new network. And then the router is going to be the UDM. If you have a layer 3 switch, you could use that as well, which I do, which is the USW Pro 24 PoE, but we'll just keep it at the UDM. If this new network was going to be a VPN, we could look under the VPN settings. And then we could give it a VPN type if we want it to be a remote user or a site-to-site. If you guys are interested in VPN videos, I have a bunch of them that I've done before, and you could look at that. Again, we could do content filtering if we want it to be on this network, and then we could look at advanced. Under advanced, this is where we're going to specify our VLAN ID, so I'll give it a VLAN ID of 10. We could give it a domain name, a device isolation, IGMP snooping, and we could auto scale the network, which I'm going to turn off. We're going to want this network to act as a DHCP server, so we'll have that on. And then the gateway subnet, we're going to change it. So it will be 192.168.10.1/24. Under our DHCP range, we need to press auto configure. And this will update it to be in the same subnet. So we'll have it from 192.168.10.6 to 192.168.10.254. There's also a bunch of different settings. That's all we're going to look at for today, and I'll press add network. Now we have a network created. Let's go ahead and look at our Wi-Fi networks. So to add a new Wi-Fi network, all we would do is go to Add New Wi-Fi Network. Here we're going to have it enabled, and then we're going to give it a name, and I'll call it Test. And then we'll put in the password of test1234. Under network, we're going to select the new network that we just created, which is test. So anybody who connects to this test Wi-Fi network will get an IP address out of 192.168.10.x/24. We could look at the advanced configurations, and here it's going to say which Wi-Fi band we want this to operate, or if we want it to operate on both. And then it will have our AP groups along with a bunch of different options, and I'll press Add Wi-Fi Network. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the security. Under security, we have Internet Threat Management, which is disabled by default. I'm going to click on the Internet Threat Management, and now we're going to turn it on. So the Internet Threat Management has two different types. We have our IDS, which is the detection, and then we have the IPS, which would block. This first option is the IDS, which would just detect and not block. And this second one would automatically block network intrusions. Under system sensitivity, we have maximum performance or we have maximum protection. If we're on maximum performance, you can see under the customized threat management, 5 out of the 11 are turned on. If we go to maximum, all 11 will be turned on. I'm going to go to balanced and put it on 3. In the UDM Pro, there's about double the amount of things you could turn on or turn off. While we're on number 3, we could still toggle on some of these options if we would like. We take a look at our network scanners, and if we turn on the threat scanner, what this will do, it will scan all subnets that are connected to the UDM, and it will tell you what port is open on those devices. We could also create internal honeypots, and what this does, it would detect malware and worms, and we would have a honeypot IP. So if I click on the toggle switch and then press create honeypot, we could see under the network, this is my LAN network, and the honeypot IP is 192.168.1.2. I'll press create. And then we could create another honeypot. And this would be for the network that we created that was test, and it will get a honeypot IP of 192.168.10.2. We also have a firewall, and this will show us all the rules that are currently implemented. And then we have internet rules, we have LAN, guest, internet v6, LAN v6, and guest v6. I have a full video on Unifi Firewall rules, and I'll put that in the description if you guys are interested. And then under advanced, we have some other things that we could turn on. So we could restrict access to malicious IPs and restrict access to Tor. We also have a threat management allow list and a signature suppression. Under system settings, this is where you could choose your country or territory, preferred language, the time format. We could have the new user interface. So if we turn this off, it would bring us to our classic interface. We could also have a dark theme for our dashboard. If we go back and look at our dashboard, you will see it in this white theme. But if I click the toggle switch for dark theme and then press apply and go back to the dashboard, it will be in dark mode, which is a little easier on the eyes. We also have alerts, maintenance, and controller configuration. If we take a look at advanced features, this is where we could turn on or off the Wi-Fi AI, and then we could create a switch port profile. We could also do network isolation and a bandwidth profile. The bandwidth profile is if we have a guest network and we want to limit them to 10 megabits per second download and upload, that's where we would specify it in a bandwidth profile and then apply it to that Wi-Fi network. Then we also have a radius server. Under advanced gateway settings, we have port forwarding, static routes, dynamic DNS, DHCP, multicast DNS, UPnP, and SNMP. If we take a look at our internet, this is where we're going to be having our WAN settings. One difference between the UDM and the UDM Pro is we can't set it up for a failover. So we could only have one internet connection connecting to it. A new feature within Unifi is we're able to have multiple WAN IPs. So if I buy a block of 5 IPs from my internet service provider, we could add that into our WAN connection. How we do that, we go to the WAN and then click on the 3 dots and go edit. Then under IPv4 connections, we could add a new IP address, or we could add a range of IPs. This would be the public IPs that your internet service provider has given you. So my final thoughts on the UDM, I think it's a great device for the home use. The access point that comes built into the UDM has a great range and fast speeds. If we have internet threat management turned on, it will bog down the connection to 850 megabits per second. So if you have a gigabit connection coming into your house, I would recommend going with the UDM Pro, as that could do routing at 3.5 gigabits per second. Along with all the features that it has, the UDM looks great. I wouldn't mind having this in my living room. It's not an eyesore. If you guys have any questions about this video, please leave it in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new here, please subscribe and hit the bell icon. All right, thanks.